I have the honor to serve as the chairperson of our Library Technology and Telecommunications Committee here at Lehman College, which I've done for the past 2 years. And always at the meetings, Dr. Cruz introduces me to come and speak before the Faculty and Student Senate and give my report. So it's my honor today to introduce Dr. Jose Luis Cruz, President of Lehman College, and our new university.
I know that this morning's concurrent sessions were most productive, and I'm excited about the great keynote speeches that are scheduled for the balance of today. It is really heartening to see so many colleagues from CUNY in the Bronx here today enhancing or exchanging ideas about how we can all best harness technological change to improve the way we create, deliver, and interact with knowledge. And perhaps as importantly, it is inspiring to know you are leaning into technology at a time when many feel technology is leaning into them. At a time when most, including me, even though I am an engineer, are finding it hard to domesticate new technologies and put them to work for us instead of us working for them. So I want to congratulate the conference organizers for creating the time and space for the collaborative work that is occurring, and want to thank all of you here today for all you do day in and day out to advance the mission of the City University of New York here in the proud, resilient borough of the Bronx. Thank you and have a great afternoon. And my work is not done. I have the great pleasure of introducing my esteemed colleague, the great Thomas Sekenegby, President of Bronx Community Colleges.
Good afternoon, everybody. President Cruz, I want to say thank you for the introduction. Again, I want to say congratulations on being the new university provost. In fact, we're all looking forward to working with you. And I like your Twitter quote, to advance the mission of CUNY. Congratulations. Again, good afternoon, everybody. It's on behalf of Bronx Community College, I see there's a table there that is Bronx somewhere. Yeah. Is Bronx BCC in the house? Yes. I just want to say congratulations to all three institutions. I think this is my third one, and it looks as if every year is getting better. And it's really heartwarming to know that the three institutions in the Bronx really collaborate to do things like this. We were here about 4 weeks ago to talk about advising, and we're here this afternoon to talk about technology. I think it's really in the interest of our students that we're really doing this. Again, congratulations to all institutions. The theme for this year, I think, is really one that caught my attention. It says, sustainable innovation, turning fads into forevers. That's really, I don't know who picked that theme, but that's a really cute one. Because what's fad today becomes really something that you can sustain and becomes a practice forever, really. If you come to think about it, all of the students that we serve, they're way ahead of us in the areas of technology. So I think what we need to do is to find out where are they playing, what things are they doing, how can we take those fads and really use them in our classrooms to make them better students. And I'm hoping that when you leave here today, as we go back to our respective campuses, you have something that you can take back to your campus, BCC, and that you can use in your classroom here. So again, congratulations to all of the participants today, and I hope you can really take something back to use in your classroom. And at this moment, it's my honor really to introduce my colleague, my brother, the president of Hostos Community College, David Gomez.
Good afternoon. I've already expressed my thanks to the new university provost for not making me genuflect. I have trouble getting back up. But our heartiest congratulations, and we are proud, though we will lose you as part of the Bronx team, we know that you're going to make an even greater impact university-wide. So Jose Luis, congratulations. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. And I'm still trying to sort out, by the way, Thomas and I were talking about the difference for presidents between welcome, greetings, and remarks. I think this falls under the greetings portion, but I just wanted to share with you some thoughts today, and that really speaks to the diversity of ideas that are reflected in today's showcase. In a word, it is truly staggering what you have done. It's proof positive of the vibrant and intellectual and technological life of the Bronx, and we at Ostos are quite pleased and proud to be partners with Lehman and Bronx in this enterprise. Albert Einstein once observed, and those of you who have heard me speak, I like quoting people who are a lot smarter than me. Einstein once observed that all that is valuable in human society depends upon the opportunity for development accorded to the individual. Education is crucial to the development, and today's presentations deal with cutting-edge ways to make education flexible, accessible, and responsive. These are exciting and challenging times, as Dr. Cruz pointed out. The future is here, and it is here now, and I personally want to thank all of you, all of the faculty and staff from the 3 institutions, for coming together, sharing your thoughts, and for allowing us to learn and grow together. Enjoy the rest of your day. I believe I've been asked to do another duty here. I'm looking for, somebody is shaking their head. I said earlier, if I was really smart, they wouldn't have made me a college president.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
The awards.
So, just 1 second here. This year we actually Our second place winner is Professor Kenneth Weissar from the Philosophy Department here at Lehman College. Our third place goes to Professor Stacy Cooper from Behavioral and Social Sciences Department at Hostos Community College. Unfortunately, Professor Cooper had to leave, so thank her when we see her. And just an honorable mention is for Professor Victoria Munez of the English Department, also from Hostos Community College. Okay, thank you. So moving on, I would like to introduce Dr. Elena Zatko.
Thank you, Annalisa. And welcome to the EdTech Showcase. It is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Christine Shakespeare. She's the Vice President of Program Strategy at 2U, a global leader in education technology. 2U builds, delivers, and supports digital graduate programs, certificates, and short courses at scale for working professionals. Prior to 2U, Dr. Shakespeare was an Assistant Vice President of Continuing and Professional Education at Pace University. Over the course of her 10-year tenure, Dr. Shakespeare delivered impactful results working across functionality, including the creation of a profitable $12 million lifelong learning division devoted to online, undergraduate, and graduate programs. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Christine Shakespeare, so please help me welcome her.
And I want to be sure to thank the Bronx EdTech Showcase Steering Committee. It's an honor, really, to be here amongst my colleagues. I want to also thank the presidents for all the work that you do to support innovation in higher education. And thanks for the opportunity to spend some time talking about my career and about myself, and to enter into a little bit of thought partnership here, because I'm doing something new for the first time. I'm paying attention to what's going on in the world around us in higher education, and I'm noticing some things that I want to see if you're noticing, and so in some ways, this is a thought partnership experiment. My narrative for today is going to be focused on who is shaping what we mean by innovation. Because, and let me just start with a caveat, in no way am I an expert on innovation or in sustainability. But we use those words a lot, and so part of the time we're going to have today is to try to understand what we mean when we're talking about innovation and sustainability. So just a little bit about my background before I jump into my presentation. I have spent some time in higher education wearing multiple hats, so not just leading continuing and online education. I've been an academic dean, I've been associate provost for student success. I've had quite a ride. One of the things that happened to me when I was at Pace University is I built up this great division, really being innovative because we had to, which I think is oftentimes at the root of innovation. Here we were, a traditional institution, and we were trying to serve non-traditional students. And we won't go down the path of what we mean by non-traditional, but for us, it was students who were coming to take a course for a day, or they were coming to take a course for 3 weeks, or they were going to do something online. And guess what? We had no infrastructure to support these students. So we were giving access, which we do really well in higher ed sometimes, but we weren't giving them success because they couldn't negotiate this institution, this impenetrable institution. So I had to be innovative, and the way that I was innovative was to work across the organization, building partnerships with the registrar, with the bursar. I mean, this just seems like silly things, but how are students going to pay their bills if they never came to campus? How could they come to campus for a day if they didn't have an ID? And the only way to get an ID was to come to campus. It was sometimes just these Herculean efforts that we had to undergo. And so at some point, I really felt like we reached a pinnacle of success. We had great enrollment, we were making lots of money. But in order to go to the next level, I was starting to compare what we were doing at Pace with my colleagues around the country. So you know what you say, what they say when you start to compare yourself? Compare and despair. I started to despair. It was not what we were doing at Pace. We had just basically caught up with what other institutions were doing, and there was no growth, there was no scale possibility. And that's the reason why I'm telling you that story, is because that has really shaped this conversation that we're going to have right now. You are the innovators, but if you start to look around you at what's going on in higher education, you might start to despair, because what we're doing is small compared to what's going on around us. So we're going to dig into that a little bit. What I'm going to spend a little time on today about leadership in higher education, and explore a little bit about sustainability, and then make some suggestions all along this theme that what we're talking about is innovation, and at the end of the day, our responsibility for innovation. Really on this journey saying, who is defining innovation, and should they be the ones defining innovation? So I like to say why we've been sleeping, but it's really not while we've been sleeping. We've been working our butts off, and all of you who work in this domain, I know what it's like. We're so passionate about what we do that my partner in life, why are you always working? Well, because I love it. I'm passionate about what I do. And we're so here that what's been going on around us, we're not even paying attention. But I've started to lift up my head and realize, wow, there is a lot going on. Major innovation is happening to us in higher education. And in this domain about some of the ideas I'm going to start talking about, but my goal here is that we're all going to say at the end of the day, wow, I never really paid attention to that, and now I am, and I want you all to walk away with inspiration about how we can start to shape innovation together instead of having it happen to us. So I was recently at the Online Learning Consortium Conference. Does everyone know OLC? And the name of the conference is Innovate. And I went to some amazing presentations, just like you've probably seen here today, about what people are doing with basically no resources to innovate in their brick and mortar classrooms as well as online. I heard these presentations about things like digital posters where students can tell a really important narrative and create a poster that can be used at the K-12 level to educate on a particular topic, how to do synchronous online group projects, not even using like Google Slides, which low cost. I heard about high impact practices, which coming out of George Q's research around how to keep students engaged in a way that uses high impact practices. Well, you know, that was done with research on first-time, full-time freshmen. What about the student that is online and going part-time? So I heard this wonderful presentation saying, well, let's experiment with taking high impact practices online and see if it works. Things like capstones and group projects and team teaching, all of that's possible in the digital space. So I'm just sharing that with you to acknowledge that I know that there's really great work going on right now amongst all of us that's innovative. One of the things I also wanted to share is that I've also become more mindful that innovation is contextual. And so this gets back to my premise that what this journey we're on today is about is when we talk about innovation and I compare and despair that I'm not being innovative enough, it's because I am in a completely different context than some of my colleagues across the country. And some of you have met my father, who's actually sitting in the corner here, Ignacio Getz, educator, 35 years at Hofstra University. And he was an early innovator in using technology for students with learning disabilities. And along the line of the Americans with Disabilities Act, where students just could not, but we had to accommodate them and finding ways in the classroom to accommodate them so that they could actually get a higher education. I bring that here because that was his context at the time. What he did then, really important. Now we're moving into whole new domains about what's possible using technology. And those of us that have limited resources, we have to be really, really creative. So let's take a look at the world that's changing around us. And we're also impacting the world around race, gender, and sexuality. I would like to propose that at their very heart, institutions, higher ed institutions, are somewhat, it's almost hard to say it, paternalistic. And this has been my experience, and that is why I'm asking you to be a thought partner with me on this. I'm not an expert in this domain, but this is what I've started to notice. How we treat people in higher ed often is like a father dealing benevolently with his children. It's really hard to gain access sometimes. You have to go through elaborate rituals to become a member of the community. Those of us who got our PhDs, it sort of hit me at one point. You know, this is all about stepping through these hoops. And I know it's in the name of getting your degree, and so I appreciate it, but the people on my committee looked nothing like me, and they were telling me I had to read these scholars because it was in the name of the discipline, but those scholars have been reproducing inequality for years. And in order for me to move into this club, I had to participate in that reproduction, which is really uncomfortable. We are all judged, and we judge students using what I would like to say is a proxy of quality. And I'm full supportive, I understand quality. We all want education to be quality education. But sometimes we use that to keep people out, and quality is often then said, well, we can't do a program for students unless it's quality, and we can't do it with quality if it's online, et cetera, so therefore we continue to keep students out. I'm saying this because what I started to notice when I started to think about this some more is that the people who, or those that lead in the higher education industry right now look almost nothing like those of us in this room. But let's talk a little bit about the start of this perfect storm so that you can see. Well in the Northeast, and I know for a fact that in some of the states that are experiencing the population decline the most severely, New York and Connecticut, I don't know if you pay attention in Connecticut, they are they're changing the system, the state system, they are consolidating schools. Happen? Well, it is happening because the reality is their budget is just, they cannot deal with the budget in Connecticut, and so they have to consolidate institutions. So this is the reality that is forcing institutions to start thinking about innovation because we have this serious population decline and we can't expect as many students to come, and if we're tuition dependent, we have a real problem. The other thing that's happening, I just captured this the other day from the Hechinger report. We've had a real change in shifting of enrollment where institutions are also, to their credit, they're trying to solve their enrollment problem at the undergrad level. They're shifting their focus to graduate programs because students are willing to come back and get graduate degrees, sometimes taking on a huge amount of debt. So another line to have on this chart would be to include sort of like a decline in enrollment of undergraduates, but this is also going on. You hear it in the news, or at least this is what I pay attention to, the extraordinary despair that millennials that are basically in that group who are going back to school for master's degree are feeling because they have to choose between staying credentialed in our workforce versus having children or owning a home. I don't know what happened here. It's probably, yeah, okay. So, just to keep it dramatic. They said, it's not looking too good based on your finances. And there's been lots of suppositions about the fact that higher ed would see almost half of the institutions close. Back when Clayton Christensen wrote his book, Disrupting Higher Ed, it hasn't happened. But I do think it's happening. It didn't happen as quickly. We have something like, 3,800 institutions in the United States. That includes all of the types. There's so many little small colleges you've never heard of in the United States. I wouldn't be surprised that we would see a lot of them close because they just cannot make the finances work. So with that in mind, let's move into those of you. Because they chose to cut the budget by cutting the funding to these institutions. Alaska is also having some serious problems, Vermont. Even before any of this was happening in the world around us, I remember Maine has consolidated Vermont. They're just really dealing with serious population decline and an out-migration state. One of the things that I do think is interesting, I'm not going to comment whether I'm in favor of this or not, but the Excelsior Scholarship was a rather genius way to think about keeping people in state, because New York is a high out-migration state for students. They tend to go elsewhere, so keep them here, give them the scholarship, and then they have to stay here and work. I know there's lots of problems with it, but I can understand from a policy perspective why that approach was taken. If you're going to make the investment, you want to see your investment pay off. So I'm going to spend a little bit of if you ever have a chance to hear him speak, he doesn't use notes. It's so fascinating. But what I want to focus on is a few of his points. And this is all part of this perfect storm that's going on around us. In the United States, higher education was really tied to our old economy, the economy where you finished high school and you stopped out of the world for 4 years. First-time, full-time freshman, you were shaped to take your place in society with a transformative experience at an institution. Right now, and then you'd graduate, and then you'd go get a job and you'd stay there for your whole career. Right now, Carnevale is pointing out that the higher ed model, which really hasn't changed, doesn't fit our current workforce. And so, and while I would be the first to say that higher education should not just be about getting a job, I mean, we've really come a long way. I wish it wasn't about that. I wish you could get a liberal arts degree and have a transformative experience and then enter the workforce and they would train you for that job. It just doesn't happen anymore. More and more students are looking at the higher ed experience at the undergrad level especially as job training. And you can't just graduate from high school and go get a job. It's almost like getting a degree is compulsory. The problem is that we're not quite meeting the needs of students, and so they're looking for other types of credentials. This is what is happening around us in the education technology space. So the education technology world has discovered that there's students looking for retraining, so maybe they have an undergraduate degree, it's not really serving them well, and they're kind of stuck at a middle income level. They're looking for a credential, they're looking for a skill, higher ed doesn't have it, so they're going to boot camps. They're going to for-profits, they're going to continuing ed, which was great for me when I was in continuing ed. But there's for-profit players out there now who do it a lot better than we do, and that is now being called innovation. It's really not innovative. They're just copying what we've been doing it and doing it better. And they're making a lot of money. So now take a look at where you are on this map. I'm a Gen Xer. You can see those millennials. They're quickly outpacing, or they outpaced the baby boomers. which was in this map. Baby boomers. Some of us Gen Xers really wanted to be leaders, but the baby boomers wouldn't leave. So I heard this great speaker talk about that. The Gen X, some of us had to go out and start our own companies because we couldn't get up to the beyond into the C-suite because baby boomers wouldn't leave, and they still haven't left. I love you, baby boomers. Okay, so the reason why I'm spending a little time talking about this is because regardless of race or gender, the people who are leading higher ed institutions are predominantly baby boomers. And I would propose that part of the struggle that we have in higher education right now is that the generation just does not get what's going, they know there's stuff going on, they know there's a financial hardship in higher ed, but the old ways of trying to solve the problems aren't working. So guess who's leading all of these ed tech companies? The millennials. They figured it out. So it kind of joke's on us. So just to take this a little step further, only 36% were female, which disturbs me because what's the percentage of enrollment of women in higher ed? It's like 60-something. Yeah. Of the 10 highest paid CEOs at Publix, 9 of them were men. I won't go on. This may, those of us in the room, we know. This is a little frustrating. Who's leading? Now let's take a little bit of a look at these folks. Who's speaking for higher ed? That comes on a daily basis regarding innovation, higher education, education technology. Look at these folks. Do they represent us? They do really good work. Jeff Salingo, he's not from higher ed, but everyone's listening to him. He's on every single panel you can think of right now. He's writing a book about admissions. Why does he get to talk about higher ed? And why is he defining innovation when what we're doing is innovative? This is the thought journey we're on together. Here's some other folks. Everyone would say, geez, I wish we could do what they're doing at ASU. And I'm just curious if you would be so willing to call out, what do you think the most innovative institutions are in the United States right now, besides ASU? Western governors. I would have said that. He said Western governors. Anyone? Yep, Penn State, definitely. Purdue Global, yeah, I forgot about them. Southern New Hampshire was one I was thinking of too. Yeah. But you know, look at who's leading them, and it's really not, I'm not trying to say that what they're doing isn't amazing. It's that they are getting to shape the innovation dialogue, and they're all being led by white baby boomers. And they are not at all connected to what goes on in a room like this when we're innovating the way we know how to innovate. Last slide on this. This is the Silicon Valley group. It's an annual summit in the industry, catalyst for elevating dialogue and driving action around raising learning and career outcomes through scaled innovation. And if you were following any of the higher ed news 2 weeks ago, this is where everyone was. This is where everyone was talking. It's been around for 10 years, and innovation is happening there, and it's all about technology companies and getting investments and all of these folks talking with each other, and we're not in the room. They're the ones defining innovation, and that's my point here. So the perfect storm. For me, by the economy, funding, and population changes, we really need innovative answers in higher education, but innovation is being defined by people outside of higher education and by a few presidents. My original question is, who is shaping innovation? Helen Drynan. Simmons is a little tiny college outside of Boston, if you're not familiar with it, or in Boston, originally a women's only teachers college, and they were really facing death. And she brought it back to life. So the person was interviewing her asked, how do small colleges compete? Her answer was not innovate or die, which you'd think she would have said that. Her answer was, solid financials and financial management in higher education has not been a key competency that has been sought in most college presidents. And she went on to talk about all of the ways that the work she has had to do to bring Simmons back to life has been about financial competency. It has not been about innovation. When you look at what programs you're going to add to your portfolio to make you competitive, that it's actually a bit of a business question. It's not just about the academics. It's also like, is this a program that, if we do the research, has some opportunity to make a difference in the marketplace? And the other thing she said was that we have to be really honest with ourselves about what we're doing and whether it's actually differentiated, which in my own experience in higher ed is a very, very difficult question. We all think our programs are special, but when you have to actually define why or how, it's really difficult to. And in my new role at 2U, I'm often in conversations with faculty and we'll say, well, what's so unique about your program? And they know it's unique. They really can't put their finger on it. And that's part of what my job is, to help to tease out those innovative parts of the programs. So our responsibility is to recognize that we're being innovative, but innovation alone will not solve higher education's perfect storm situation. Our responsibility is to start to shape the conversation, and that's why I took you on this journey with me, and thank you for going on it with me. I feel strongly that we have to take a deep breath and have the courage, like I had today, to talk with you, to say, our diverse voices need to be in the mix when we're talking about innovation. And innovation is not just scale, which currently that's what it is. The big EdTech companies are helping institutions solve their financial problems by scaling, which is great because some of the programs are amazing and they should be brought to more people, but scale does not equal innovation. In other words, innovation's only definition is not scale. In the examples I have here as some ideas just to get you thinking, I want to looking for a director of our continuing ed unit at PACE. She came from outside of higher education, and she had worked in various places where they were running programs for the community. Like she worked at Riverside Church running a little kind of program for people who wanted to do acting. She'd worked at another acting school in downtown New York running programs. And so I took a chance on her. She had really good ideas. And the reason why I'm telling you this story is I took a chance in hiring her, and it's a chance I am really grateful that I took. She's a millennial, and she looked at everything in a very different way than those of us in higher ed. It was a constant source of struggle for her. Why are they doing it this way? And why do they say it has to be done this way? Because that is, unfortunately, a lot of times it's what we say. Why can't we find a way to let students do X, Y, and Z when we know we'd get more of them and we know they'd have a better experience? But she forced me to have to then take the lead with my colleagues at PACE to advocate for her point of view, which was legitimate. She's also the one who started to point out that what was going on around us in higher education was being shaped by people who didn't look like us. And a woman, a millennial, feeling like the people making the decisions at the upper levels of the institution were baby boomers who just were so out of touch with the students that we were serving. And their solutions were never what she felt students really needed. In closing, I would like to say that I would want to I don't know all the particulars, but they are all Gen Xers. Yay, they belong to my generation. And they're new presidents, and they're facing unprecedented challenges because they stepped into the leadership role and their institutions are in financial mess. And innovation isn't going to solve that. It takes an amazing amount of courage to have to make the tough decisions and then to innovate. I would like you all to join me in thinking and then acting in ways that help us get more people that look like us, shaping the conversation about innovation and bringing new generation, new blood into your offices so that you have a different voice and that they'll begin to start to come up and become the next leaders within higher education. So thank you for being my thought partner. I feel a lot of gratitude, and I look forward to, I guess we have time for questions?
Yes, I'm a technology person who believes that technology is assistive rather than prescriptive. And when you talk about innovation and the fact that it may or may not be the